Right now to the dissolving of Peel Region. For reaction to this, here's Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown speaking outside Queen's Park this afternoon following the Ford government's first steps towards dissolving Peel Region.
I welcome some of the opportunities this presents. Obviously, there's been significant economic development and housing that can be curtailed by having redundancy at a regional level. Getting rid of a layer of government in Canada can be helpful for us to build faster. I have expressed a large asterisk with all this, and that is the financial ramifications. For 50 years, since Bill Davis, one of Brampton's finest residents and one of Ontario's finest public servants, since he created the region of Peel in 1974, we've been contributing to the regional infrastructure. And we have regional infrastructure that is critical. It's not a choice, it's critical. The water treatment facility, the wastewater facility, you look at our paramedic stations. Largely, it has been built in Mississauga. The police headquarters. We have paid for Mississauga's growth over 50 years. I'm grateful the Premier has said that Mississauga will not be able to run away from their bill, from what is owed, from what hard-working Brampton residents paid for 50 years. The rhetoric coming out of Mississauga is alarming, and we hope that the province will reiterate to the city of Mississauga that there's no running out, there's no dine and dash permitted when it comes to regional infrastructure. This isn't Canada's wonderland, and there will be no free ride on the backs of Brampton residents. To replace the water treatment facility and the wastewater facility, we're looking at $4 billion. $4 billion. And it's essentially at capacity. We've had 4 housing projects in recent weeks stalled because of a lack of servicing capacity. Mississauga has used up the capacity. And so we've actually been in a discussion at the Region of Peel. We just had a report released on how we could make further investments to expand our servicing capacity. Mississauga used it up. It's like going for dinner. They ate the entire dinner, gave us the empty plate, and said, you can have the rest and let's split the bill. That's not the way it works. And we expect the province to ensure that Mississauga is not able to dine and dash, as Mayor Crombie has suggested. I would note, there's 4 more paramedic stations that we've paid for in Mississauga. The police headquarters is in Mississauga. And when I look at policing, we just passed a motion last year at the Region of Peel to build a new police facility in the northwest, in the west end of Brampton, which would be the northwest quadrant of Peel. And any notion that, with this new servicing enhancements required or the policing enhancements required, that Mississauga would no longer cost share, when we cost shared for 50 years, is offensive. And it's not right. We demand fairness in Brampton. I appreciate the Premier has given that as assurance, but it needs to be crystal clear in this process. We'd be happy to take any questions, and I would note the fact that our City Council is here speaks to the fact how significant this is and the potential ramifications for the City of Brampton. We are leading right now in Ontario when it comes to economic development and housing construction, which is both very important to the province. The new Magna facility, the new Stellantis production line, you look at MDA, the massive new aerospace investment. These are investments the province has touted, massive economic development initiatives. We're on pace to hit the province's housing targets, but all of that would grind to a halt if we didn't have servicing capacity. We've had housing projects in recent weeks stalled because of servicing on major transit corridors. If we can't build housing on transit corridors and we lose access to servicing, none of the province's goals on economic development or housing will be possible. We asked for a rough estimate of a breakdown of what it would cost each Brampton resident if we were to build our own servicing capacity on our own, without Mississauga making a contribution. It would be $6,000, north of $6,000 per resident. Those are astronomical costs that our residents couldn't accept, given the fact that we've made these contributions. We've paid our regional taxes. Lastly, I think it's important we don't allow rhetoric to get in the way of facts. In recent days, we've heard Mayor Crombie speak about how Mississauga subsidizes policing. The numbers put out yesterday by the Chief of Police and the Peel Police show that is factually incorrect. And I hope it wasn't intentionally an effort to mislead or to confuse residents about the cost. If you look at the total call volume for the Peel Police, this year and last year, the volume was higher in Mississauga. The facts are very clear, and Brampton expects every dollar we put into regional infrastructure in Mississauga will be paid back to our residents, and we will not be shy to stand up for our city. Are there any questions?
Yes, the province has given you reassurance that Brampton will be kept all of the separation, so you still sound worried. Is it not enough? What are you looking for?
So, I appreciate the Premier's reassurance. What is alarming is that even here today at the press conference, we heard the Mayor of Mississauga sing a different tune. And so when someone is suggesting that they can dine and dash essentially on the backs of Brampton residents, that's alarming. And so I would like the Mayor of Mississauga to change the rhetoric, but I'd also like the province to make it very clear to the Mayor of Mississauga that they would not be permitted to run away from their bill.
Just curious about your thoughts about the board, that the appointment of the transition board being able to kind of overrule previous council decisions. It looks like that's something that have power to do with your thoughts.
Well, for decades, Mississauga has had essentially majority control at the region of Peel. And so if for some reason in this interim period they wanted to halt any infrastructure, economic development, housing project in the region, that would be negative. There's so much momentum right now in Brampton and the region of Peel, and so I can't speculate on what the rationale was for that, but it may be a protective mechanism to make sure there's no action that could be taken at the region of Peel that would, in this interim period, cause significant detriment to any of the municipalities in Peel region.
Mayor Brown, would you be able to just summarize your biggest concerns with this announcement today en Conseil?
Oui, c'est important que nous travaillions ensemble pour protéger chaque ville, dont la région de Peel. Et maintenant, il y a beaucoup de questions pour notre ville, comment Mississauga peut payer cette frais.
Mayor Crombie, she doesn't think Mississauga owes you any alimony in this divorce. And so you can put the tension with a knife in there. You're both making faces as each other is talking. How are you going to make this an amicable divorce, Mayor?
Maybe she's forgotten that the water treatment facility, the wastewater facility and the police headquarters are in Mississauga, but they are. Those additional paramedic stations are in Mississauga, and we've cost shared for the construction of those facilities. When she says that there is regional infrastructure in Brampton, there is. The regional council chamber, the archives, but those would no longer be necessary. The infrastructure that we built in Mississauga is very expensive, and it's a necessity for municipal servicing. And so, she has no right to run out on that bill, and that we would need that infrastructure to be replaced in the city of Brampton.
Maybe get the timeline there. Is the 18 months long enough, or would you have liked to see this maybe go into closer to the next municipal election?
Well, the giant question mark in all of this is how are you going to pay for it? You can't build a new water treatment facility and wastewater facility and police headquarters overnight. And so there are ambitious timelines. The Minister of Municipal Affairs quoted the great Hazel McCallion. And Hazel McCallion said, do your homework. And I think that's what I'm asking. I want to see the homework done on how this is going to be paid for. How are you going to build the new water treatment facility? How are you going to build a wastewater facility? How are you going to build the new police headquarters? What is the plan for that? It doesn't look like Mississauga has the financial capacity to pay for it, so who's paying for it?
Is this personal at all? I mean, for Mayor Crombie, Hazel McCallion was her hero. The architect of all this, Bill Davis, is yours. I mean, to see his work starting to get undone here, too. Do you feel any personal way about it?
No, I had a very close relationship with Hazel McCallion, and she attended many of our events in Brampton and supported us. And of course, Bill, you may not know this, but Bill Davis and Hazel were dear friends. We actually did a number of events together. And so, I'm not against the idea of independence. I'm against the idea of of taking a ride on the backs of Brampton residents. And so as long as what is owed to Brampton is paid, I can see some opportunity in this. And really, it's just about fairness and no one trying to run out on a bill in terms of what our hardworking residents have paid for decades.
So are you concerned about possible conflict of interest in the transition board? And if so, how would you address those concerns?
Well, they haven't even appointed a transition board, so I think it's premature for, addressing that hypothetical scenario. But we would hope the province would appoint people that will look at the facts, not the rhetoric.
Captain, so last week, you were under the impression that there was going to be a review. The province is obviously foregoing that review process. I'm just wondering your thoughts on that, about the decision not to go through that.
So I guess this 5-person panel is going to look at the costs. What would happen if Mississauga could not afford the cost of dissolution? I think that's really a question for Mississauga in terms of where they would, what they would do if they couldn't afford it, and the bill was larger than they expected. So I guess this panel is that financial review in a way, but certainly these are expedited timelines that will be challenging.
Can we see any tax hikes in Brampton, and City of Brampton people are very worried about this celebration? Any message to them?
If Mississauga didn't pay their bill in terms of what Brampton paid in Mississauga, if all of a sudden Mississauga, it's like a divorce where you both have equity in the house, and you have one person saying, no, we're taking the house and we're leaving, and you have no equity. We built that infrastructure, and so that there would be significant financial implications if we didn't get that repayment. If you break down, $4 billion amongst our residents, you're looking at about $6,000 a resident. So we expect fairness, and we expect the investments that we put into Mississauga's regional infrastructure will be paid back to Brampton.
What was the last conversation you had with the Premier about this?
So I speak to the Premier usually once or twice a week. I spoke to him about it last week. I explained to him the financial ramifications, what it would cost for us to rebuild this, and he assured me that we would be made whole. And so we'll be watching this process very, very closely.
Do you see this a process that's going to be a bit more gradual? You're talking about building a new water filtration plant, building a wastewater facility, a new police headquarters. That doesn't all have to happen by the 1st of January 2025, right? This might be still a long-term process, and all the money might not be available up front.
There could be some transition agreements, but there has to be a plan for it. Right now, our servicing capacity is already essentially used up. Right now, we have housing and economic development projects that are on hold right now, and so the region literally just got a costing on what it would be to expand servicing capacity. There is no way to meet the province's housing and economic development goals if we don't have servicing capacity, and so there needs to be urgency because they're already essentially used up due to the growth in Mississauga.
Would you like to see police and paramedics stay as a regional?
So, we didn't call for this dissolution, and so asking about these hypotheticals, what I would say is, I couldn't accept a police headquarters in a different municipality where I would, we'd have to, have our policing, public safety needs addressed in a different city, and so these are all the questions that this new tribunal is going to have to look at.
Well, why, a headquarters is a headquarters. It's not where the policing is happening from, right? Is it really materially important that there be a headquarters in Brampton?
Well, response times are very important. It's why we just got through the region appeal. Councillor Peleschi worked very hard on this to have the new facility built in wards 2 and 6. That was going to be funded by the region, and so there's so many question marks. But we want our chief of police and our senior police leadership to be accessible to the residents of Brampton. They shouldn't have to take a 40-minute drive to come in, or a half-an-hour drive to come and see the jurisdiction that they would be policing. Well, right now we have shared infrastructure, and so it would they service all appeal. That would change, right?
So So just now you mentioned like you asked like the city of Mississauga to do their homework. So what do you think the city of Brampton, what type of homework do you think the city of Brampton still needs to do?
So the homework we'd like to see the city of Mississauga do is to come up with a plan of how they would pay for the water treatment plant, the police, the additional police infrastructure, and the wastewater.
How about your city? Like what type of homework would you do like in this process?
So for Brampton, obviously they'd have to. We no longer need the Peel Council chambers, the archives, and what those facilities could be used for. But once again, this is a request to the city of Mississauga, and so if there is a cost onus on selling that infrastructure that is no longer required, this was Mississauga's request. Once again, this is not something that Brampton asked for.
I've been told that the city of Brampton has not yet agreed to the audit promise moving forward.
No, we passed that motion at council.
Final question?
Anything you're telling your all the employees of Peel, you're telling people that are working for you guys?
So, there's some great employees at Peel Region. I know they're nervous right now. I look at some of the staff we have, and they've, especially during COVID, they were exceptional. The way the paramedics stepped up, the Peel Police, Peel Public Health, they got some exceptional employees, and we're thinking about them in this period of uncertainty. Certainly, we want there to be a continuation of service in the city of Brampton.
Anything any of the other councillors wanted to say what you're hearing from residents, concerns you have, other messages?
Sure. Just going back on some of the comments that were made about servicing and having a utility board or having a Peel Regional Police board or having a Peel nonprofit board. It's something that they talked about in 1974, and that's why it became the Region of Peel. So it really truly makes no sense in terms of timelines just on that alone. 7 years until we can build a wastewater treatment facility. So yes, things like that have to happen, but to be on our own municipality, what does that board look like, and why wouldn't it then be the Region of Peel? To have boards that would be somewhat of Mississauga Council and Brampton Council and Caledon Council, that's what it is now. It's essentially what it is now, yeah. And just to your question about Peel Regional Police headquarters, the city of Brampton wouldn't have their city hall in Mississauga.
Where's the paramedics though?
No, they have 4 more in Mississauga, 4 more stations. Okay, thank you, and we'll be watching this closely, as I'm sure you will as well.